and we put it on the wreath. So after the service today, it's a military thing. You will never see a military person, if they know the truth, carrying a poppy after 11:30, 12 o'clock on November 11th. But the thing is, we remember, but as I said earlier, we don't just remember the sacrifice, we remember their lives. And I heard stories about my great uncle and how he was as crazy as I am, and maybe I got some of it from him. And he was just a wonderful, wonderful man. And he sacrificed his life so that our life could be what it is today. We found it. We found it. And the interesting thing that I see with that is, we're talking about Nathanel today. Does anybody know who Nathanel is? Nobody knows who Nathanel is? Well, the only thing that we know is two things. One, that he was a disciple, because in two lists in the New Testament, his name's there. But there's a little problem with that, because sometimes they refer to him as Bartholomew. Now, what's with that? I guess that's the same with John the Baptist. Maybe he was referred to as that at times. Of course, that's his middle name. Right? Not really. But I'm going to teach you a little bit about Nathanael. Not only was he a disciple, but he was the first one to declare who Jesus was. He really was. Philip came along and got to meet Jesus, and he was so excited about it. And this is how we are when we first accept Jesus. We're so excited that Jesus is a person that we go and tell other people. I remember when I was 10 or 11, and I came to know the Lord at Youth for Christ, which is next door here, which these boys are working for. I went forward and accepted Christ, and the next day I went to school, and I told everybody I saw. Guess what? I became a Christian on Saturday night. And they go, yeah, so? But you know, it was within me that was jumping up and down. I just wanted to tell everybody. And Philip was that kind of person, and he came upon Nathanael, and he says, Nathanael, you got to come here. You got to go and see Jesus. And come on, let's go. And so he got up, and away he went with him. And just as he's coming up, Jesus is saying something to himself. Oh, there's number 2. And Jesus said, I saw you when you were under the fig tree. You got the passage there, by the way, Edward? The next day, Jesus decided to leave Galilee, and finding Philip, he said to him, follow me. And Philip, like Andrew and Peter, was from the town of Bethsaida, and Philip found Nathanael and told him this. Read it. We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law, and about whom the prophets also wrote. Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. Pretty good, isn't it? Nazareth, can anything good come out of there? I remember the first time I went to England, I went to visit Deborah with Deborah, and then we went to visit the kid, and I said, you know, I'd like to go up to Scotland sometime. And of course the English, you know, being English, they said, the only good thing coming out of Scotland is the road to England. Come and see, said Philip. And when Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, he said to him, here is the true Israelite, in whom there is nothing false. Can somebody say that about you? You know, I was talking, I guess it was last night, we were talking about you have to tell the truth all the time. So if your mom goes in, this is what we talked about, remember? Michelle, remember this? I said to Michelle, I said, if your mom goes in and she gets all dressed up in the makeup and the hair, she looks so nice, and she comes out, can you tell her she looks good? And you tell her the truth? Or, she says, no, I tell her the truth. I could never do that with my mom. You look wonderful. Whether she did or not, I always said that. But that's an interesting phrase, isn't it? Why don't you ask yourself, are you that? Next, Ed. How do you know me? Nathanael asked, and Jesus answered, I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you. Then Nathanael declared. You ever made a declaration? I had to do it when I was on the plane. Coming home, you have to write down, where you've been, how long you've been there, and how much you spent. It's great when you get on a plane. You only spend $100 and you're allowed 800 or whatever it is, right? And so I put down $65 because I figured out how much candy I had in the bag and all. He declared, Rabbi. Do you know what a rabbi is? Everybody here? Same thing as me. Okay? That's the easiest way to do it. Rabbi, you are the Son of God. Nathanael's the first guy that comes along, and he said, you are. None of the other ones had said it yet. And Nathanael knew. Yeah, and look at the title of the sermon. You got the title of the sermon and the undertitle? Being a follower of Jesus takes a change of mind and heart, and sometimes it takes a while. Not with Nathanael. It was instantaneous. And he said, you are the King of Israel. And Jesus said, you believe because I told you I saw you under the fig tree. Really? No. Not really. He knew. He knew. Remember the feeding of the 5,000? What did the disciples take to Jesus? You remember? Hey, this is a Baptist church. Tell me about it. 5 loaves and 2 fish. He was there. In fact, he was in charge of the supplies. Judas was in charge of the money. Nathanael was in charge of the supplies. So Nathanael would go to Judas and say, I need to buy. Jesus said, no, you don't need to do that. And so Jesus blessed the food and then started giving it up. And each disciple had a basket of food. And he'd go to one group of 10, and the next group of 10, and the next group of 10. And there's 5,000 people, so this took a little while. And I don't know about you, but you ever been at a buffet? The first ones at the table are always the first ones at the dessert table. Except me. Because I go the other way around. I have a big sign in my house. Life is unpredictable. Eat dessert first. And after it was all over, they had 12 baskets left. And that was probably for the next 12 days. Nathanael was here. He was right there. He saw it all. He was a detailed person. And he had to be a detailed... It's gone again, Ed. Sorry.
Oh, you want back to the verse?
No. Third one.
Okay.
We know he was a detailed person because he knew the scripture. I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you. And he put it all together. You ever try to learn something and it really wasn't coming, and all of a sudden, boom, it hit you? I was at seminary and I had Joyce as our professor in education, and we had 13 classes in 13 weeks. And we went in there for the first one. She taught us a whole bunch of stuff in the first day. And we go, whoa, that's a lot of stuff. Yeah, that's good. That's really good. And that's fine. That's no problem. And the next week we went in, and she taught us something totally different. And we're going, that was last week. This week, and it just doesn't go together. So we never said anything to her because we didn't want to let her think we thought she wasn't a good teacher. Because you never want to tell your teacher they're no good. Trust me, you fail. Third week along, she did the same thing. Something totally different, and we're just going, really? Joyce, don't you know how to put things together? We never said it. Week 4, the same thing, and we are getting so upset, it's crazy. Went the 5th week, and we all said before she came into class, well, I wonder which avenue she's going down today. Because we all take side, me and my preaching, I always go off on the side somewhere, always, And you people love me for it. Because, this morning I looked at my change and I had this. Do you know what this is? It's a 25-cent piece. Celebrating the 90th anniversary because it's from 2008. There's a 2018 out now. They remind us of things. We get to the 5th week and we come into class and she all of a sudden starts pulling it all together. By the time we finished the 13th week, we had an education that we had never dreamed we'd ever get from any of the professors. It was that good. She was one of our best professors. She took the year off that I graduated. She was on sabbatical for a year. And we, as a collective Master of Education class, when they gave us our hoods, put our hoods on us, and we all had our hoods, and we're all standing in front of the stage, I believe it was. And we all yelled at the same time, "Thank you, Joyce!" We're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to be prim and proper, Master of Religious Education. You're getting up there and, we yell at you. Because we understand that we learned, because somebody put it together for us. You have it together. You are the Son of God. When we look at Nathaniel, this is the only thing that we know about Nathaniel. The other one, he's just in 2 lists. You see, it's not what we can do, but who we are. And Nathaniel realized what that was. And he wanted to follow Christ. The Pharisees were really religious people, weren't they? Religious people. Yet they were the ones that were trying to kill Jesus. Instead of recognizing who he was, like Nathaniel, you were the Son of God, they wanted to get rid of him because he was getting into their territory. Solomon in Ecclesiastes chapter 1, he writes there and he says, everything in life is futile. Everything in life is futile. See, he couldn't see meaning in life because he hadn't got to know who God was. He knew all the things you're supposed to do. When God came up with the 10 Commandments with Moses, that was an interesting... Came down, and here's the 10 Commandments. And he threw them down, and he broke them all up, and he had to go get another copy. And he gets back down, and here he is with the second copy, and he says, okay, here's what God says. And the Pharisees took that and they created 261 other laws that came out of that. You couldn't travel more than a mile. Or may have been, being that it's over Jerusalem, may have been a kilometer. I don't know. But on Sabbath, you could not travel farther than that. So say you wanted to go to your cousin. And it was actually 1 mile is 7 feet. You'd be standing outside until the next day. They made all these rules. All these crazy rules. And what for? Because they didn't know God. Nathaniel knew God. Nathaniel knew God. In 2 Corinthians it said, when you set your eye on God, then life will be in the process of transformation. He was there instantaneously. How about you? How about you? You see, it's not what we do, but what we let Jesus do in us. You know, we can say we're a Christian and we need to do this and this and this. You know, we need to read our Bible every day. Who here reads your Bible every day? Notice I didn't put my hand up. There are days I don't get around to it. But we create that rule ourselves. And we need to pray every day. And we need to make a list, especially a list, where we don't forget. You know, I went into this fellow in the hospital. He had one of those diaries. And the diary was page after page after page after page after page of people he would pray for. I went to see him. I said, "How are you doing?" He said, "I'm doing okay." He said, "The doctors think it's not going to be long, but I think I'm doing okay." I said, "Well, what do you think about it? What are you thinking about? What's going on in your mind?" He says, I'm praying for everybody, and I'm going page after page. And I'm lying here in this bed with nothing else to do, so I pray. By the way, I pray for you. How are you doing? That's what he said to me. I don't know if you get to that point when you have a person who is going to see Jesus in a matter of days, and he said, "How are you doing? Because I pray for you." Tears for you. Tears for you. You see, we need to be transformed, just like he was. Nathanel was transformed. You see, the divine nature of sacrifice, then God sets our lives in a new direction. When we sacrifice ourselves to Jesus, when we say, "Jesus, everything for you, nothing for me." You see, we get too focused on me, don't we? You ever done that? We get focused on ourselves. We say, "Okay, now I have to change. I have to do this for Jesus. I have to. No, you don't. You have to let him change you, because if you want to be like him, there's only one person that can do that. Think of yourself and think back to one of your parents. Did they ever teach you one thing that you didn't know before, or one thing that you didn't do before, and you learned from them to do it? My dad was a carpenter. He taught, the most important thing he ever taught me was how not to get slivers. By the way, I got one in Florida, and my cuticle got infected. Because I didn't learn it all from my dad, even not getting slivers. You know, he used to say to me, and he says, "Robin, you know what? You can make the best sawdust I ever seen." Really? I thought that was good. He said, "You can't make stairs, you can't make windows, you can't make a house, you can't lay a floor, you can't, but you can make good sawdust." You know what? We need to make the best thing that we can make. And Jesus wants us to do the best we can, to be his children, or God's children. You see, I'm going to end with this because we're getting on, and I know everybody is thinking of lunch already. But don't think about it for too much, because I want to take you on a road somewhere. This morning when I was looking at the sun, I was remembering 2 weeks ago when I was down in Florida and the sun was coming up. And I got a picture of it. I'll show it to you one day. And here's the sun coming up. Sets over there. Here's the sun when it comes up in the east. And the moon's in the west. And it happens here. I'm watching the sun come up over here, and there's a moon over here. And it's an object lesson about us and God. Because the moon has no light in itself. Nathanel knew that. The moon has no light in itself. It is only a reflection of the sun. And you watch the full moons. I have a friend who's scared of full moons. She's got this thing, and I'm going, that's garbage. Jesus made it for us to enjoy. And one day I'm going to go to the gym. She works nights at the gym, and I get there at 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, you should come. Pretty. 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm in there, and here's the full moon. I go, hey, come here for a second. I want to show you something. That's what I want to do. I want to show her this brilliant moon. But you know, we're the same. We're the moon, and Jesus and God are the sun. Jesus said, I am the light of the world. Really? He's the light of the world. He shines on the world. He also shines. And we're the moon. And we're out there. And all the time, the earth gets in our way. Do you get it? The things of this world get in our way of receiving the light and the warmth of the sun. Moses, that happened to Moses. Did you know that happened to Moses? He was at the bottom of the hill, and he's looking up, and he sees this bush burning, and he goes, oh man, must be California. Wait a minute. It's still burning. And he goes back, and he's doing what he's taking care of the sheep, and he's doing what he's doing, and he's doing what he's doing. And about 2 hours later, he comes back, and he says, it's the same as it was 2 hours ago. So he decides to go investigate. And he gets so close to the bush, and God says, take off your shoes, for the ground on which you stand is holy ground. And he takes them off, and he's there. And he comes down from the mountain, and he gets it down from the mountain, and he gets there, and the radiance of God is still burning in his face, and he's shining, because he stood that close to God. That's what we have. We have to stand so close to God that His reflection shines on us, and the world out there, who knows nothing but darkness, finds the light. That's what He calls us to. My notes are over here. They left. You see, we're put on the earth between God and the world. And when the world gets between us, there's no longer a reflection of Him. He said, be holy as I am holy. I'll close with this. The Alaska Highway they began construction in 1957. That's way before everybody here was born, other than me. And a friend of mine was in the military, and he had just bought himself a brand new 1957 Mercury convertible, and he decided that he wanted to drive where he lived in Michigan. He was going to drive over to Vancouver, British Columbia, and he was going to be one of the first people to drive the whole Alaska Highway. They were just building it. They were taking truck after truck of gravel because it was all mud. When it rained, and it rains a lot in Vancouver, it rains so much that one side of the tree is green. You know that? Anybody know that? Anybody been to Vancouver? It's green. One side of the tree is always the same side. So he started driving, and he got to the end of the gravel, and there was a sign on the side of the road that said, pick your rut carefully. You're going to be in it for a long time. We do the same in our lives, don't we? Everybody's afraid of change. I'm not afraid of change. I like change all the time. In fact, I like it so much I bought a new sweater. What do you think? $70. I paid $7. Brand new. But here's the thing. We have to get out of that rut. And we have to say, Lord, change me into what you want me to be, not what I think you want me to be. And that's when it all comes together, and we glorify Jesus Christ and His Father in heaven, who is our Father. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this man that your Son called and said, come follow me. And I pray that everyone here this morning can declare that you are the Son of God. For not only did Nathaniel declare that Tell Jesus what he felt and thought. But we need to say the same words. Lord Jesus, you are the Son of God. And we worship you. Come into our lives again today, that you will strengthen us with the courage that we need, that we can become what you want us to be, not what others say. We don't have to read our Bible every day. We want to, but we don't have to. We don't have to do a lot of things, but we think we do. No, we just have to become more like you. Help us to do that and carry us on. In Jesus' name.